Now, before I even begin, I want you all to know that this video isn't meant to promote hatred towards a certain group of people. It isn't meant to incite hatred towards Muslims, because we all know they're not all bad people. And this video isn't meant to promote racism towards people of a certain color. This video is meant to attack an ideology, the ideology of Islam itself, which is a horrible religion of hatred, violence, bigotry, and misogyny. And unfortunately, whenever anyone tries to criticize Islam, they're immediately branded a racist or an Islamophobe. Well, we should be afraid of Islam, and here's why.
Hey Mohammed, what the fuck are you doing? Get off your ass and get back to work.
I don't think so, man. I ain't doing shit today, bro.
Oh really? And why the hell not?
Because I'm the prophet of Allah?
And then he became a mass-murdering rapist warlord who was poisoned to death by people who hated him. The end. So the ideological roots of Islam are steeped in outright lies and dishonesty. The Prophet Muhammad just came up with some retarded story to control and manipulate ancient, primitive, uneducated people through fear and violence. And this behavior is evident with how Islam treats animals through halal slaughter. And this isn't unlike kosher slaughter, which is a Jewish murder tradition. They both involve slitting an animal's throat open while they're fully conscious. So, yeah, both Islam and Judaism believe that slitting an animal's throat open while it's fully conscious and allowing it to die a slow, horrible, painful death is ethical and humane, which isn't unlike how ISIS executes journalists. And of course, because halal slaughter is considered a religious practice, they don't have to abide by humane slaughter laws, which require you to give the animals just the bare minimum level of mercy by at least rendering them unconscious before you slit their fucking throats open. Now, I'm vegan, I'm against any kind of slaughter, but I can understand the principle of wanting to reduce the suffering of these animals while they're being killed. I wish people would just wake up and realize that murder is wrong regardless of how it's performed, but we've at least evolved to the point as a modern civilized society to recognize that slitting an animal's throat open while it's fully conscious is pretty fucking far from humane. But Islam? Oh no, we have to adhere to these ancient barbaric practices that were made up by a psychopathic warlord over 1,000 years ago, and we have to accommodate their retarded backwards beliefs, because if we didn't, we'd be racist. We have to allow these people to torture animals to fucking death because we're against racism.
Servants, your Prophet Muhammad has the munchies.
And what could I get you, oh glorious Prophet Muhammad?
I'm in the mood for some barbecue. Go kill me that goat over there.
But, my prophet, surely you don't want to harm an innocent animal. Please let me get you some fresh fruit instead.
Are you questioning me, the prophet of God? You either slit that fucking goat's throat open or you face the wrath of God. What's it going to be, bro?
I'm sorry, my prophet. I cannot come to harm an innocent animal.
Why you got to be racist, man? Islamophobia ain't cool, bro.
And this brings me to the issue of Islamic immigration and the culture wars that are happening all across the world, but especially in the UK and Europe. And I first wanted to talk about halal slaughter for this very reason. I wanted to show you that Islamic culture has very different ethical standards and moral values compared to modern Western culture, and ignoring this and enabling these people to carry out their backwards regressive customs has created a lot of problems. And again, I don't want people to get the idea that my beliefs on this are influenced by blind hate and racism. even though Islam isn't a race, it's an ideology, so I'm going to stick to using just facts. Now, I want to refer to the Pew Muslim survey, and I think this is a very accurate and reliable source of information. The survey involved over 38,000 face-to-face interviews in 39 countries, so I would consider this a reliable source of information, and according to the survey, the majority of Muslims across the world are in favor of making Sharia the official law in their countries, and this is especially true for Muslim majority countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, Sharia is Islamic law. It offers moral and legal guidance, and it refers to the ethical principles set down in Islam's holy book, the Quran, and examples of actions by the Prophet Muhammad. Well, in the Quran itself, there are hudud crimes, which are crimes outlined by God himself and are therefore unquestionable, and these crimes are considered to be against God himself. 4 of these 7 crimes are punishable by death, including leaving the religion of Islam, adultery, armed robbery, and rebellion, and having sex outside of marriage earns you a flogging with 100 lashes.
Yo, Ephraim, what's this shit I hear about you fucking one of my bitches, bro?
Please, Muhammad, it's not what you think. We were all alone and emotions were running high. One thing led to another. We didn't know what we were doing.
You want to know what happens when you fuck one of my bitches, man? You get the wrath of God.
And as I just mentioned, Islamic law Sharia is also modeled off of the Prophet Muhammad, and this is where a lot of the hatred of gays come from. In Islam, there are hadith collections, which are a biography of statements and actions committed by the Prophet Muhammad. And in these hadiths, the Prophet Muhammad makes a lot of references to Sodom and Gomorrah from the Bible and talks about how gay people are horrible and should be murdered. Interestingly, however, there is an account of the Prophet Muhammad saying that if a man who is not married is seized committing sodomy, he will be stoned to death, and this stealthily implies that it's okay for a man to ass-fuck his wife. And considering how the Prophet Muhammad had 13 wives and numerous sex slaves, he probably did a lot of ass-fucking, none of which was consensual. So considering all of this, these are some pretty frightening statistics. The majority of Muslims across the world are in favor of Sharia law, and especially in Muslim majority countries, they're very much in favor of Sharia law. And Sharia promotes the killing of people who leave Islam. There's 109 verses in the Quran itself, which commands you to kill non-believers. Sharia promotes killing gay people. There's horrible barbaric punishments for crimes, like having sex outside of marriage. You get 100 lashes. And Sharia also involves you following the actions of the Prophet Muhammad, who was a murdering, rapist, psychopathic warlord. So, considering all of this, do you think it might be a good idea to recognize Muslims who are in favor of Sharia law are a high security threat? I'm not against Muslim immigration. I think there's plenty of good Muslim people. But maybe people who are in favor of horrible, barbaric, regressive practices of Sharia shouldn't be allowed into our countries. Do you really want people who think gay people should be murdered, women should be treated as second-class citizens, people who don't believe in Islam, they should all be murdered, and we should have horrible, barbaric punishments for crimes like having sex outside of marriage, you get tortured, if you steal something, you should get your hands and feet cut off? Do you want those people living in your country?
Anybody that supports Sharia law in this country should be deported.
So do you know what Sharia law is?
Yes, but it doesn't
What
have
do you
equal
know what it
rights.
is?
Are
Me
you
praying
follow
5
Sharia law?
Of course, me
Do
praying
you?
5 times a day is Sharia.
Okay.
Right? Like basic.
What about the
do you
equal
even-
rights
you
for
know
women? What about
That is completely separate from
Oh, so now you
Islam.
can be a Sharia law supporter and be half pregnant at the same time.
What are you talking about?
let's
You are
just-
talking
let's
about
just try and
stuff
have
you
one
don't
person.
know anything about. Like, okay, I'm not going to attack you personally.
What
but
law?
my frustration is that people talk about Islam without knowing anything about it. And they're willing to completely negate any of my rights as a human being, as a woman, as a person with agency, simply because they have an idea about what my faith is about. Excuse me, Islam to me is the most feminist religion, right? We got equal rights well before the Europeans. We don't take our husbands' last names because we ain't their property.
And many Muslims will make up these stupid bullshit lies to try to fool you into thinking that their religion really isn't that bad. I just showed you what Sharia law actually is. It's a set of horrible regressive beliefs that promote violence and bigotry, and Islam is incredibly sexist. Women are referred to as second-class citizens throughout the Quran. It's permitted for men to rape their wives, and men are also allowed to have multiple wives and keep sex slaves. And in the Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad makes many mentions about women being second-class citizens. He actually claimed that almost all women go to hell, which just shows you his absolute hatred of women. And his favorite wife, Aisha, complained about women being treated like dogs and asses under Islamic rule.
Bitch, you better suck on this dick?
So yeah, many Muslims will flat out lie about their religion. They'll tell you, oh, Islam is this religion of peace and love, and it's very progressive, and it's pro-feminism, which is bullshit. It's horrible. And this woman was lying through her teeth, and she knows she was lying. And the reason Muslims will lie about their religion is for two reasons. First of which being, they're just plain embarrassed that they follow such a horrible, regressive belief system. They've been indoctrinated into this religion since they were children, so it's difficult for them to leave and just say, yeah, this religion is bullshit. So they have to come up with lies and excuses to justify their beliefs to sane, rational human beings. So they're not really Muslim. Yeah, they claim they're Muslim, they identify as Muslim, but they don't actually believe in their own holy scripture. And then you have the radical Muslims, or as I like to call them, actual Muslims, who do hold these horrible regressive beliefs, but they'll lie to you, tell you, oh, Islam is a religion of peace and all that bullshit. And they'll tell you this so that they can easily invade your culture and try to take over. And this is actually spoken about in the Quran. There's something called taqiyya, which is a form of Islamic deception, which allows Muslims to lie in order to protect themselves or protect the Muslim community. So Muslims are being taught to deceive you. They're being taught to tell you that, oh, Islam's a religion of peace and love and feminism and equality, so that you'll allow them to invade your culture, you'll allow them to practice their horrible regressive beliefs, and then they'll try to sucker you into their cult. So here's a great example of this actually happening. There was an anti-Islamic protest in Belgium which had recently been attacked by ISIS. Well, a Muslim woman named Zakia Belkiri took selfies at this protest and started tweeting about how, oh, this is just racism and blind hatred. Islam is a religion of peace. Not all Muslims are bad. We need to just all come together and accept each other's cultures. Well, this woman hates Jews. She literally wants to kill all the Jews. And she made a post about this on Twitter claiming Hitler didn't kill all the Jews. He left some so we'd know why he was killing them fuckers. Oh, you see, guys? Islam is a religion of peace and equality, and we need to accept their culture, but kill all the fucking Jews! And anti-Semitism is rampant in Islamic culture, and again, this is very much because of the Prophet Muhammad's hatred of the Jews. And what a surprise! Here in Canada, in Toronto, the city I live in, an Islamic school was caught teaching an anti-Semitic curriculum to kids. They were trying to teach Muslim kids that Jews are comparable to Nazis. And this is back in 2012, by the way. But Islam's a religion of peace, they say. It's all about equality and love, they say. And a lot of people who identify as Muslim do actually think that there's a lot of good Muslim people. I'm not trying to convince you that all Muslims are bad people, but a large portion of Muslims actually read their holy scriptures, they do actually hold these regressive beliefs, and they're trying to invade Western culture and try to take over and spread their hatred. And this isn't just an isolated incident that's only happened in Canada. This happens all over the world, and it's especially bad in Europe and the UK. And here's footage of a Muslim school where they were trying to teach students in the UK to kill non-believers of Islam.
But he's Muslim and he get out of Islam. He doesn't want any more. What are we going to do? Kill. Kill. Yeah, qatl, kill. You have to kill. You understand? We're talking about Islam. For the had the zina, what is the law of this? Until he died. And the one who is not married, he never dies. Now, with 100 if someone make themselves like a man, a woman like a man, you understand this? The punishment is kill. Kill them from the highest place. And not going to be like animals, living like animals. Or to be like the people of Lut, we have to take the had. Had is to kill them.
With the punishment of throw them from the highest point and then throw them.
Then we reduced him to the lowest of the low. So if you throw someone off a mountain, you are reducing him to the lowest of the low because they're falling off from a high thing.
It's not enough that you worship Allah, we have to also, in our heart, hate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please to Allah, and love what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order to hate what displeases to Allah, especially when living with this country that's non-Muslim.
Verily, we are free from you, and whatever you worship besides Allah, we have rejected you, and there has appeared between us and you hostility and hatred forever until you believe in Allah alone.
You understand, sister? Islam is the tabarruk min al-shirk wa ahli, the people who do the shirk. Any questions?
To be good friends, give them all about our secret. Understand? You have to be fair with them. But it's not allowed. Because wala is only to Muslim, not to the Kafir.
It's part of Islam, of the aqeedah, of the correct belief, that you love those who love Allah, and that you hate those who hate Allah. Okay?
The ayah of the Quran says, we made of you peoples, different shu'ub, to know one another. And if you communicate with the other and you show the beauty of Islam, then then maybe people could come into Islam.
It doesn't mean that we should oppress them. It doesn't mean that we don't give the right. It doesn't mean that we don't help them. It doesn't mean as well that we should befriend them.
There are some conditions that can take you into the kufr, to take the British citizenship. Whether you like it or not, for these people you are selling your religion for. It's a very serious thing. It is not allowed to give allegiance to other than Allah.
It's not befitting for a Muslim that he should reside in the land of evil, the land of the land of the disbelievers. A Muslim should emigrate to a Muslim.
Is this a surprise to anyone? So a Muslim school in the UK has been caught teaching students that non-believers of Islam have to be murdered, gay people should be murdered, anyone who's against Islam should be murdered and hated. It's in their own holy scripture. So what is the surprise? Yeah, a Muslim school which teaches the fucking Quran is teaching kids these horrible bigoted beliefs. And they're also teaching kids how to invade other cultures, sweet talk everyone, convince everyone that Islam is so wonderful and peaceful, and it actually works. There are now Shariah courts in the UK because Muslims were able to convince government officials that Sharia isn't a set of bigoted beliefs. It's just about love and peace, and yeah, that's bullshit. It's not. In modern Western cultures, we've created legal systems that coincide with our ethical beliefs and values of equality, but now there are a large portion of Muslims who are trying to culturally invade, take over, and have us adopt Sharia law, and this has already happened in the UK, and lawmakers in the UK allowed it to happen because they are so afraid of being called racist for standing up against Islam. And now, this is even happening in Canada. They're now trying to pass a law which is an anti-Islamophobia law, which grants Islam special protection under the law, which prohibits anyone from dare criticizing Islam. Even though Canada already has laws that grant religious freedom and freedom of expression, lawmakers here still want to enact a policy that gives Islam special protection from any criticism, and critics of this law are claiming that it's a path to Sharia law being adopted in Canada, similar to how it's being adopted in the UK. And if we're not allowed to criticize Islam, then how are we to stop Sharia law from being adopted as the official law in Canada? Because now, if you're against Sharia law, you're racist. If you're against killing non-believers, you're racist. If you're against killing gay people, then you're racist. If you're against misogyny, then you're racist. And radical Muslims take advantage of white guilt morons, white people who are terrified of being called racist, and it influences lawmakers to pass these ridiculous laws that enable and protect the horrible practices of this religion. And here in my hometown of Toronto, there was a small protest outside the Masjid Mosque in downtown Toronto. Now, protesters were both condemning the regressive beliefs of Islam, and they were also protesting this anti-Islamophobia bill, claiming that it's a path to Sharia law. And after this protest took place, Mayor John Tory tweeted, "Islamophobia has no place in our city. I've visited Masjid Toronto many times and denounce all acts of hatred towards our Muslim citizens." And of course, other city officials were quick to denounce this protest as Islamophobia and just plain blind hatred and racism. Well, imams from this very same mosque that was protested, and imams are basically religious leaders that lead prayer, they were caught inciting violence and hatred towards non-believers and Jews. They're quoted as saying, "O Allah, give victory to Islam and raise the standing of Muslims and humiliate the polytheism and polytheists, infidels and atheists, and destroy anyone who killed Muslims. Count their numbers, slay them one by one, and spare not one of them. O Allah, purify Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews." So in Canada, we've already caught a Muslim school teaching students to hate Jews, and we've also caught Muslim religious leaders inciting violence and hatred towards non-believers and Jews. And now we're trying to enact some new special laws that protects Islam from any criticism, and this should come as no surprise. These things are explicitly written in their holy scriptures. Hatred, bigotry, and violence is written in their holy scriptures. So what are we trying to do here? Be tolerant of intolerance? The only reason this is happening is because white people who are lawmakers are terrified of being called racist. There is no logic here. When white people criticize Islam, oh, that's racist. But when Muslims talk about killing non-believers and Jews, oh, that's just part of their culture. We need to make laws protecting their culture. Now, I know a lot of you are going to tell me not all Muslims. Not all Muslims hold these horrible regressive beliefs, and that is true, but there's this prevailing myth that the vast majority of Muslims are moderate, which is not true. The vast majority of Muslims across the world are in favor of Sharia law, and a large portion of Sharia supporters are in favor of murdering those who disobey Sharia law, like leaving the religion of Islam. So at best, you have a very, very large portion of Muslims who are in favor of these horrible regressive beliefs, like inequality between men and women, and a smaller percentage, but still significant percentage of Muslims are in favor of horrible violence. But another important aspect of this data is that religious commitment to Islam correlates with higher support of Sharia law. The more devout a Muslim you are, the more likely you are to support horrible regressive beliefs like killing non-believers. And in the survey, they found that Muslims who pray multiple times per day were far more likely to support Sharia law, up to 37% more likely in some territories. So we know that the majority of Muslims across the world are in favor of Sharia law. A large portion of Muslims who are in support of Sharia law are in favor of murdering those who disobey Sharia law, and the more devout and committed one is to Islam, the higher likelihood they will support Sharia. And maybe this explains why these Islamic schools and these Islamic religious figures are inciting violence and hatred towards non-believers and Jews. These people are just more devout in their religion, and they are just taking to heart the teachings of their religion. This is the Islamic religion. It is hatred and bigotry, and ignoring this is dangerous and it can be deadly. The vast majority of terror attacks are committed by Muslims, and even in the United States, the majority of terror attacks that result in death are committed by Muslims, and the reason for this is a large percentage of Muslims have these horrible regressive beliefs, and especially young Muslim men are very easily radicalized. In the US, 15% of Muslims aged 18 to 29 believe suicide bombings are often justified, and these numbers are even higher in the UK and parts of Europe. And 7% of American Muslims aged 18 to 29 have a favorable view of Al-Qaeda, which is a Muslim terrorist organization. And again, I'm not saying this to hate all Muslims. I'm not claiming all Muslims are terrorists. That's ridiculous. What I'm saying is, Islam is a religion of hatred, bigotry, and violence. A large portion of Muslims actually read their holy scripture and take it to heart, and young Muslim men are especially vulnerable to radicalization. And if we ignore these facts, if we ignore the fact that Islam is a threat to Western culture, then we're inviting violence and hatred into our countries. And I'm not saying I'm against Muslim immigration. I'm not saying we should ban Muslim immigration outright. What I'm saying is we should enact logical and strict vetting procedures that keep these facts in mind so that we don't invite radical Islam into our countries. And I want to show you all exactly what happens to a peaceful Western country when they allow in a mass amount of Muslim immigrants without screening these people to see whether or not they follow radical Islam and whether or not they'll integrate well into society. Sweden has done this, and they have seen a dramatic increase in violent crime and especially sexual assaults. Violent crime has increased by 300% in Sweden, and rapes have increased by 1,472%. Yes, I didn't misspeak. Rapes have increased 1,472% in Sweden. They have the highest rape rate in all of Europe and second highest in the world, losing out to only a shitty African country you've never heard of. And according to a 2011 statistic, over 77% of rapes in Sweden were committed by migrant men, most of whom were Muslim. So it's quite clear that migrant Muslim men are responsible for the dramatic increase in crime, especially sexual assaults and rapes. But if a politician in Sweden dare speak up about this, they're charged with hate speech, because how dare they use facts to argue against mass Muslim immigration, which is similar to a law that Canada is now trying to pass, because facts are racist. The fact that migrant Muslim men are responsible for the dramatic increase in crime, especially rapes, that's a racist fact. Facts are racist now. If you live in reality, then you're racist. If you're against rape, you're a racist. And again, Muslim culture is rape culture. In Islam, women are treated like garbage. Women are considered second-class citizens. The Quran allows men to keep sex slaves, have multiple wives, and of course, men are permitted to rape their wives and sex slaves. And the Prophet Muhammad himself married a 6-year-old girl and, according to the Muslim scripture, raped her when she was 9 years old. And remember, this is the man that Muslims worship and take their ethical teachings from to form Shariah law. So it comes as no surprise that migrant Muslim men would be committing all of these rape crimes. It's just in their culture to treat women like shit.
Hey bro, I'm totally going to fuck that little slut Aisha tonight, man. That pussy be tight as fuck, bro?
My prophet, is she not just a little young? I mean, she's only 6 years old.
Oh yeah, good point, man. I'd probably wreck that pussy too hard with this huge dick. I'll wait till she's 9.
And the UK and European countries, and I guess Canada now, are being completely complacent about this. They're being complacent about a violent rape culture because they're so terrified of being called a racist by standing up against Islam. And now we have a Muslim man who raped a 13-year-old girl, but he was spared a jail sentence because he didn't know it was illegal. He went to a Muslim school where they taught him women are no more worthy than a lollipop that has been dropped on the ground. Islam is a rape culture, it's a culture of violence and bigotry, and young men especially are being groomed in this religion to be complete fucking assholes. And if we don't do something about Muslim immigration, if we don't enact strict vetting procedures and logical policies dealing with Islamic immigration, we're going to have the exact same problems that are happening in the UK and Europe, and especially in Sweden.
Majority here are Muslims from East Africa, and they don't assimilate well into the Swedish culture and society, and they're unemployed, and they're poor. So you add all these factors together, and their youth are feeling marginalized and don't speak Swedish very well, so they don't get jobs or get into the Swedish youth culture either.
The police leave, and as we prepare to go, young men masking their faces arrive.
Good, you're doing good. You're doing good? Yeah. Okay, very good.
Take it easy.
Okay, you too.
And attack.
Go! Mate! Go! Don't you touch me! Okay, we're gonna do.
Excuse me. Please, please.
Get out of here.
There's no need to be unkind.
You can't
Hey,
you can't film. No, don't do it.
Now again, I want to end this video by telling you all that I'm not in favor of hating Muslims. I'm not in support of the idea that all Muslims are horrible people, and if you see a Muslim on the street, you should harass and attack them. I'm totally against that, and I think that's sick and disgusting behavior that I completely denounce. What I want is for people to just acknowledge the truth. There's this harmful idea being spread around that Islam is a religion of peace, which isn't fucking true, that the majority of Muslims are moderate, which also isn't true, and that we shouldn't be worried about Islamic immigration. We should just let everyone who wants to come into the country, which is fucking ridiculous. These ideas have been tried before in Europe, the UK, and especially in Sweden, and it's had disastrous results, and I don't want that to happen in Canada. And if you still disagree with everything I've said here, then keep in mind, I'm putting my life at risk by saying this. This is no joke. If Islam is such a good religion of peace and love and equality, then why do people who criticize Islam get murdered? Why is it perfectly safe to criticize Christianity and mock Jesus Christ, but to criticize Islam and mock the Prophet Muhammad, you're putting your life at risk? And I really care about this. I'm willing to risk everything, and I really don't want to see the spread of Islam. It means death and subjugation for many, many more people. And really, the people who suffer the most because of Islam are Muslims themselves. There's Shia and Sunni Muslims who are constantly at war. They're under threat of terrorist attacks. These people have to live in war zones. They're under constant threat of religious persecution from their own religion. So if you really do give a shit about people, then you'll take a stand against Islam.
What a relief. When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and